Hello, my name is Ram Banerjee. I'm co-founder of Transaxiom Limited, and I'm here to talk about digital cash systems that may be utilized by operators to implement an electronic money scheme for their subscribers. So Transaxiom was started by myself and Duncan McNeil about 4 years ago. I'm basically been in the smart card area since the early 90s in all aspects of smart cards, including smart cards for mobile phones, smart card for ID, and so forth. I've developed many systems along the way and started one of the largest transit ticketing companies in the UK together with Duncan McNeil, which we sold sometime last year. I've also in my time been worldwide head of Java card technology at Sun Microsystems. I was there for 4 years and we looked after the Java card technology worldwide. So effectively, I've been involved in the security, the payment, smart card space for a very long time. Duncan has got even more experience than I have. He really is a serial entrepreneur and has started up many companies, not only Transaxiom, but Squid Card Limited, which is doing a lot of work in Kenyan schools, Pumpco, ASC, a number of other companies that he's actually started. And we started Transaxiom mainly to solve the problem with cash. The majority of the planet has to deal with cash. They are not banked, they don't have access to banking products, and this basically stops these cash users from participating in what is potentially the greatest advent of modern trade, which is electronic commerce. There is no e-commerce without e-payment, and people with physical cash simply can't partake. Similarly, you can't. So what are the problems with the systems of today? How do you move money from A to B, from a payer to B, the merchant? And this has been a classical problem. Physical cash is easy. You hand over the money. The merchant looks at the money, convinces himself that the money is genuine, and then provides you with the product. But when you do it in electronic form, every single system that we know of to date has relied on the money accounts actually being in the cloud. So effectively, the payer, here represented by A, has an account in the cloud, and the merchant, here represented by B, also has their cloud-based account. And what happens is that the payer has to authorize the transaction. In order to do that, the payer has to get to his account, and he does so through a network. In the case of mobile phones, this is the mobile network. So every single payment system that we have at the moment is dependent on the network, the internet or the mobile data network. And the payer has to identify himself and authenticate and authorize the transaction using, in this case, typically the m-Pesa system, for example, uses SMS commands. And during this SMS command, there is great risk of ID theft. And the risk is there because at the moment, no money is moving. The only thing that is moving is identity and authentication information. ID information is sent over the network into the cloud in order to start the payment process. Then the cloud-based server moves the money from account A to account B and sends a confirmation SMS back down to the merchant B to say that the money has been moved. And this round trip, data going into the cloud, being processed and coming back out of the cloud, represents a time gap, and it can be slow and is dependent on how many transactions are taking place now, the quality of the communication channels, the radio signals that are currently available to those mobile phones. So it can be slow, and indeed, a message may not arrive at all. which means that one waits for a long time and then retries the transaction. Every single system known today uses a cloud-based server to hold the value in the cloud. Legacy systems such as m-Pesa were really designed some time ago, and were designed when phones only had voice and text, especially the phones in Africa. So basically, the system was designed around the capability of text on a very simple phone. But the world is very different now. We have feature phones. We have smartphones, and they're gaining traction extremely quickly, and smartphones with apps that can be downloaded and run. We now have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi radically and practically on every phone. And even NFC is now making great inroads into the mobile phone population. So we need a payment system that really maximizes the advantages of these new communication channels, and indeed grows as the technology grows, and not be limited by the systems that we may have in place today. So what do we do? Well, we offer a digital cash solution that is interoperable. What does that mean? Physical cash is interoperable in the sense that the government issues the money, many banks handle it, it's available through ATMs and from employers, and people use it at many merchants who understand that this is acceptable currency. Really, the success of an electronic money system is not how well you can spend, but in how many places you can receive. And one of the drawbacks of e-money systems, say produced by operator A, is that every merchant that wants to receive that operator's money has to be set up with a device from operator A. And when operator B comes in with their own money system, that same merchant now has to have equipment from operator B. It highly limits the system. What you really want is a common merchant base who has a contract with the operator to say, I wish to receive money from your issued base, and to be able to then use that merchant base for the success of your subscribers to be able to pay with digital currency in order to make a purchase. So we made it interoperable from the start. It need not be interoperable in a country, i.e. you could have just one issuer, one operator that's issuing this money system to a single merchant base. But it should become possible for other operators under the right type of financial system, under the right type of business rules, to be able to join in a common scheme so that everybody uses the same merchant base, but everybody uses that base with the currency that's currently circulated in their subscriber base. And that's what makes these systems popular and grow. So we targeted the system as point of sale and person-to-person transfers, whether local or remote, and digital content markets. This is something that's been completely impossible to physical cash. A lot of the mobile phones today have the ability to download apps in the form of games and music. Digital content, which can be consumed on the phone itself. You don't need a third-party merchant device. The phone should then be both a source of the cash to spend and also the source of the terminal at which to spend it, all on the end user's device. And we're a firm believer in payment should be value transfer, not the transfer of identity information. And as a result, our system only transfers value, just like cash. And there is no ID theft possible because there is no ID information transferred during transactions. So it has some unique properties that are very cash-like, not like any of the digital systems you know of to date. It's instant. You don't have to wait to know whether this transaction happened or not. Local and guaranteed. This is the only way to be able to do digital currency systems, for instance, in transit, where the specification is 300 milliseconds, barely a third of a second, in order to complete the entire transaction. It's not possible if you have to put a network in the way. Secondly, just like cash, we perform aggregation, which means that the merchant terminal is effectively collecting value and adding it to the total value that they've collected to date. And by doing so, any value of transaction becomes economic. Just as one may pay 1 cent every 5 seconds to a merchant, that merchant just adds that money to their till, and at some time during the day, at the end of the day or whatever, takes that total, that aggregated total, and banks it. And as a result, there is no amount at which this transaction becomes uneconomic, because the entire transaction is taking place locally between the payer and the merchant, and it's only the aggregated total that is banked at the end of the day. The third really unique property is that there is no dedicated hardware at the merchant. If you have a physical cash accepting merchant, they've got a cash drawer, and then they can put money into there. In electronic systems, you need an electronic terminal that's been issued by the party, and that has to be paid for, maybe a lease arrangement. There's security associated with that. There may be a SAM inside that. There's none of that in our system. The merchant terminal is effectively an NFC phone that has got a downloaded app within it. Now we have some unique properties that are on. So how does this system operate? Clearly, we have a payer who has unspent funds and wish to transact with the merchant, who will then collect these funds and provide goods and services. These pairs need to be loaded with money, and this loading process is performed by what we call the issuer. An issuer is the hosting system that manages the entire payment system, and the payer issues a load request, and the issuer loads value into the payer. The source of these funds can be a wide variety that we'll come on to on a following slide. The merchant, at the end of the day or end of the week or at any time during the day when he feels he needs to bank his money, he sends a redeem request to an acquirer. The acquirer is the hosting system that manages the merchants and takes this redemption value and goes to the issuer and says, this merchant wishes to redeem this much value from your customer base. May I receive the funds? And it duly does so from the issuer and deposits those money into the merchant against the merchant's name, possibly even in the merchant's bank account. What are the relationships that are taking place? All the payers, in the case of the issuer, all the payers are really the subscribers of the mobile operator, and the issuer is the mobile operator operating a payment server system. And the relationship is from the issuer to many of its payers, and that's where the loading is done. The merchants have a relationship with the acquirer, and the redemption process happens that way. Now, initially, when there's only one such system, the issuer and the acquirer are one and the same hosting system. They're separate components of the same host, and they form the payment server that operates the entire scheme. But in time, in many years, there may be different acquirers for different groups of merchants. So the relationship of merchants is through the acquirers. The relationship with the payer is with issuers. On day one, though, the issuer and the acquirer will be the same party because there's only one set of people taking place. An important aspect of the transaction system is that the payer remains anonymous to the merchant. This is just like cash. If you pay with $10, the merchant does not know who you are. Indeed, he doesn't even know which $10 in his till was once belonging to you. And the payer knows the merchant because he's gone to the merchant to buy some goods. It's just that the merchant doesn't know the payer. And this is very useful because it emulates cash. It means that the payer could be a child or someone like that, and they can't be tracked for what they are doing. But I have to say, the issuer knows all the transactions that are ever done between a payer and a merchant. It's only the merchant remains a party that does not know the payer. The payer knows the merchant, the issuer knows every payer, the acquirer knows every merchant, the issuer knows every acquirer. Everybody knows everything else except that the payer remains anonymous to the merchant. There is a trusted relationship between the issuer and the acquirer because fulfillment has to take place between an acquirer and issuer. As I said, the acquirer and the issuer on the first system is one and the same party. But the system is designed to grow so that you may have acquirers in many acquirers within your country, acquirers outside of your country who may be still servicing merchants that are accepting money from your subscriber base. So what do we provide? We actually provide a reference implementation for all the 4 components of the system. For the payer, we provide the payer application either on a dedicated smart card or as a Java applet that can go inside the SIM of the mobile phone. For the merchant, we provide reference terminal applications in the form of Android apps that can be downloaded into merchant devices. For the issuer and the acquirer, we provide reference implementations of the issuer and the acquirer host that may run in the cloud. This reference implementation can be reskinned so that it looks like your own, but you may take this reference implementation and build systems of your own from it. Therefore, it is available to perform an entire system as it stands, or it may be customized further according to your requirement. So the reference implementation involves the payer device. As I said, it's an applet in the form of a SIM Java applet or a dedicated smart card. Why do we have it on a dedicated smart card? Because we feel that if you, the operator, have a successful payment scheme, there will be people who want to participate in that payment scheme who may not have phones yet, such as children or such as old people. If they wanted to participate in your payment scheme, then provide them with a contactless smart card. That gives them access to the payment scheme. They can load value in the contactless smart card and use that for transactions. And when it's time for them to upgrade to a mobile phone, then it is that payment system that will draw them to you as the mobile phone supplier. Our smart cards, whether it's in SIM or a dedicated smart card, are global platform compliant, so that's how applications are managed on the card, and indeed the whole system can be personalized using these mechanisms. The merchant terminal and the end user wallet are applications that may be loaded onto phones. And we do recommend that merchant phones are NFC compliant, because that will provide them with the greatest flexibility, because NFC phones typically have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth already built into them. And in that way, they could accept payments from any pair device, however the communication channel is coming to the merchant device. We can also provide applications for end user phones, subscribers' phones, which may be running, for instance, a game, so that you can actually provide in-app, in-game payments. This is a great way of generating revenue from your subscriber base as they play offline. They've loaded a game and they're playing it, and they buy a new sword or a new shield for a little bit of money, and this money accumulates on their phone, and until a rule is triggered which says, once you've built up $1 on the phone, I want you to call the central system and deposit the money. We also provide user wallets and load capability so that should your subscriber base have a mobile phone, a smartphone, then they can use that mobile phone not only to look at their own balance and to load value within that balance, but be able to load value for other people. So parents may be able to load value using an NFC phone for a child so that the child can go to school and buy lunch with it. So in this way, we have the capability of turning any NFC phone into a personal ATM. The host system is typically cloud-based, and it performs things like registers the payers, manages the mint, which is the electronic funds, how they're generated, and the loader that loads value onto end users, subscriber, payers, cards or devices. The host system also runs the acquirer, which has the merchant relationship and be able to redeem funds from merchants and settle funds for those merchants. How would such a system be implemented? We would recommend, since you are an operator, the thing you really control is the SIM. So it's probably best to put the pair applet into the SIM. This SIM will hold the value and be able to manage pins, end user pins, so that the subscriber can decide whether to make a payment with or without a pin. Indeed, the pin value can be set at a certain value. For a small amount of money, no pin may be required. Beyond this threshold, a pin is required. Because this SIM is inside the phone and the phone is connected to your network, it provides the capability of performing issuer commands such as block this payment card, unblock it, or change the PIN, or extract transactions from it, or do automatic load. So when it reaches a certain low threshold, some value is loaded into the phone. All of these can be controlled by the issuer. But as I said before, we also have the capability of a standalone prepaid contactless pair smart card. And it may be, for instance, just in transit systems, you may be able to get a card which has got some value preloaded onto it, and people just use it within your payment system until the value has gone down, and then ask somebody to put cash back onto that value. In fact, all the loading mechanism can either be from the subscriber, the user's bank account, it can be from cash. You can literally give cash to a friend of yours who's got a bank account, and he takes the cash and loads money onto your phone from his bank account. So anybody can become a load agent. You don't need this m-Pesa style of tens of thousands of agents that are all paid, all trying to make money. Anyone can be a load agent. A merchant could load value. One of the things merchant could do in order to entice people into their shop to say, if you bring me cash, then I will load that cash equivalent as electronic value onto your card. And they're able to do this using the redeemed totals that they've collected so far or from their bank account. An employer may care to pay using this mechanism rather than physical cash. Certainly, pensions and social security or other types of government payments can be made directly onto a card. And we have the capability to have what are known deferred payments, which means if you know that your pension is going to hit your account on the 5th of every month, then those loads are actually sent to the entire terminal population, ready in an offline manner, that when you go to make a transaction with that terminal, the first thing it does, it loads your pension onto your card before the payment transaction starts. So we have the capability of distributing funds throughout the community to the people who have been allocated those funds. As I've said before, a parent may care to use their mobile phone to actually provide a child who's only carrying a smart card to have value to spend at school or whatever. And this is certainly a good way for charities to provide funding to selected families and individuals on a regular basis in order to help them out of some sort of. So, how are the phones loaded with applications? It's simple. Because there is no security requirement in the phone applications, they can be simply loaded from the App Store. So the user apps might be something like a terminal to check the balance. We'd call it a wallet maybe. It could also check transaction history and the loads that's been performed on that particular device, and indeed initiate a load from the chosen funding source. For a merchant, it's possible to use the phone itself as an inexpensive merchant terminal that takes transactions, shows those transactions, shows the total, and performs the redemption, i.e. the banking function, at the end of the day remotely and quickly. It's recommended that the merchants have NFC smartphones because that gives them the capability of receiving transactions through any communications channel, including NFC, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. As I said before, the merchant may belong to any operator, and indeed, this is a way to get people that are outside your subscriber base slowly into your system because you provide a better service with your payment mechanism. The server that's performing the issuer and the acquirer functions can be cloud-based, which means that they can be geographically independent. They can be either within the country or outside somewhere. And they are just accessed through the internet. So they provide payer and merchant registration, which is a one-time event. They perform the load operations required to load value into the payer's device, into the payer's phone. And they provide the merchant redemption functions that takes value that's been aggregated and accumulated into merchant terminals and provides those funds into the banking system. So the hosted server has portals for payers and merchants to see what transactions they've done and where their money has actually gone. Clearly, there's a very good admin access to all of this, and all the transactional data is known. I want to repeat this. Every single transaction of who paid who, how much, and when is available to the system, to the issuer, to the operator, so that they may utilize this data for data mining purposes, to perhaps even sell on as data that's useful to the merchant base. We've deliberately built the server system so that there's no third-party licenses. It uses a version of Unix called CentOS, and it uses publicly available applications so that there is no license, for instance, for databases, such as from people like Oracle and anything like that. So it makes the server an extremely inexpensive device to. So, what can this SIM inside the phone of your subscriber do? And basically, you have to ask the question, what can't it do? First of all, it is able to go in through the Wi-Fi or the mobile data channel and be able to access remote services. So actually pay for web services such as newspaper magazines, buy tickets, buy books, buy electrical devices over the web if that was available in country. Make remote website purchases, buying tickets, train tickets, whatever, pay bills, whatever is available through the web. It can also use the remote networks to send money person to person when the person is not immediately available to them, not local to them. So somebody can send money to their aunt who may be 300 kilometers away. Secondly, it's possible to use the money within the SIM to actually pay as you go for items that are consumed within the phone, be it music, games, video, or whatever. So pay as you go, pay as you listen, pay as you view, pay as you play is possible, and is possible using the phone offline. So you don't need to be online for every transaction, and each payment can be a tiny amount of money. You can literally pay 1 cent for every 5 seconds of video that is watched. And these 1 cent transactions will be accumulated within the phone and then sent off when it reaches a crucial figure. In a local environment, you can use either the NFC or the Bluetooth available to the phone, whatever is available to the subscriber's device. For transit, be it an expensive gated system like the one shown, or simply a bus driver who's got a mobile phone acting as a bus terminal round his neck, and you touch your phone to their phone and you perform a transaction. It could be a local person to person where you pay a friend locally some money. And this friend needn't be a friend. It could be a local merchant in a stall. He may be sitting on the ground just selling a few vegetables, but he has the ability now to become a merchant, to accept money from you. It could be unattended in a vending type environment where there is no shopkeeper, there is no human operator involved, but you're still able to gather goods and services. Interestingly, a lot of people are now using mobile phones as a point of sale terminal, and it's possible therefore to make a payment to such an m-Pesa device, or indeed a point of sale device that was doing other things. If they're programmed to receive this money, the terminal application can actually be loaded into a point of sale terminal, so that any point of sale device that is local can be paid using this mechanism. So let's see where our system from Transaxiom matches up against some of the other things that are available. I've just chosen some in random. Obviously I've chosen M-Pesa, but Visa and MasterCard are trying to do a lot with prepaid credit and debit cards, and PayPal is quite ubiquitous in many parts of the world. As you can see, they all claim to be, and they are to various degrees, quite secure systems. So there's no real worries there. Although if you see the number of hacks in the debit credit card world, you'll wonder if it is a secure system. And the problem is that in all of the systems on PayPal, debit credit, and M-Pesa, the accounts are held on the server. To access the server, you need identity and authorization and authentication information. And that information can be stolen en route. And that's the Achilles heel of these systems. But everybody's trying to keep these systems secure. We have no such ID theft problem in the Transaxiom system. So there is no ID theft in our area. All of these systems claim and do and are able to pay online systems. None of them except ours holds value on the phone. And therefore, none of these systems are truly offline. The network cannot be working. Every transaction can be offline. In some of these other systems like debit credit, you may be able to perform 3 or 4 offline transactions before you're forced to go online. And remember, any system that mandates online mechanism, the moment that there's a hiccup with that data, whoever's fault it is, whether the operator is currently having a problem, there's a thunderstorm that has knocked out a particular mast, whether the shopkeeper's mobile data has run out, whatever it is, anything that stops access to the network will stop that transaction. But on our system, the transaction is offline. It is not network dependent. It is truly offline, and it is fast. We can match a transaction in far less than the 300 milliseconds that's mandated for use in transit. So it can be used on any speed of transaction, including the most treacherous, which is the transit transaction. It is universal pay-as-you-go. Nobody else will allow you to make a 1-cent transaction every 5 seconds and still do so economically. The transaction system can be in form of digital currencies. They can be in real geographic currencies, but also in other currencies such as kilowatt hours or liters of water or kilograms of rice. It really does not matter what the currency is. The transaction can still take place. Person to person, a lot of these systems claim and in fact do offer person to person value transfer. We do so locally as well as remotely. Ours is open to all because it is just carrying the value. You're not passing over identity information. You don't need to prove who you are. You just need to prove that you have the money to pay. So anybody who can currently operate physical cash can be an operator of the Transaxiom digital cash system. There is no dedicated hardware security module or HSM in the terminals, which means that merchants can become a certified merchant instantly just by enrolling online. Within a few minutes, they are ready to become a merchant and accept value from your subscriber base. And as I've said previously, the payer of the transaction remains anonymous to the merchant. This becomes important in a key area. If you have protected the value within your payer device using a PIN number, and if you're using a card, for example, where are you going to enter the PIN number? The PIN number would be entered in the merchant's device, and you don't know whether that PIN number is going to be recorded in the merchant device or not. If the merchant device cannot tie the PIN number you've just put in with the card that is just seen, then there's no possibility of ID fraud. It simply doesn't know which PIN number belongs to which card. So the Transaxiom system is therefore very fast, faster than any of these other systems. It truly is offline. There is no terminal HSM to manage. This makes rollout of the terminal base extremely easy. It is a true universal pay-as-you-go system, and it really is open to all. So Transaxiom really does tick all the boxes using the very latest available technology that's available within either the feature phone or the smartphone. So what possible business models could we have together? Well, there's 3 that we look at when we look at people such as operators. The first one is our ideal business model, where we like to be in partnership with an operator. We can set up the system so we can implement it in your environment in terms of on SIMs that will work with your subscriber base. We can test out these systems and roll out. And there is an engineering fee to work with you during this time and be absolutely correct in making sure that these systems will work out all right. And in return, we ask for a one-time fee for the initial piece of work, and then a revenue share model. The idea is that when you make money, we make a little bit of money, part of the money that you make. If you don't make money, we don't make money. So that is our preferred partnership model. There is a licensing model where you can say, I'm not going to tell you how many transactions I do. I just have this many users and give me a license fee depending on the number of users. And we can do that, and we can provide an annual maintenance contract. As we do updates, we'll provide the updates to you and you can implement them and run your business. Finally, if you really feel flush with funds, you can simply say, I don't want a long-term relationship with you. I just want to buy this system. You may contract us to do a maintenance contract, or you can simply say, I have my own people that can do that in-house. So there's the 3 stages of possible business models that can be. So what are the next steps? Obviously, a slideshow is fine, but you need access to the systems in order to evaluate whether what we say is what is in fact available. So the first stage 1 is an engineering evaluation where your technical guys will try and take this system apart. And that can be done extremely quickly. I suggest for stage 1 that is actually not done on SIMs, but actually done on contactless smart cards, which are acting in the same way as your phones would do. So a few contactless cards, a couple of phones acting as merchant terminals, and one cloud-based server that we set up for you. And you can play with the system and convince yourself that, yes, this really does say what Transaxiom says it does. The next stage after that involves some serious work, because now we have to move the system into your SIMs. And to do it on 1,000 SIMs is realistic. Once you can do it on 1,000 SIMs and 50 merchants, you can do it almost on any number of SIMs and any number of merchants. These can be branded applications. So the merchant application has your brand on the screen and so forth. If there's user applications like wallet and loaders, they can also be branded with your brand. And we can start put some portals together, certainly a merchant portal, perhaps even a payer portal, so that people can look at their transaction history and so forth. And if that is really successful, then it goes on to stage 3, where effectively you expand this system into a full rollout. So I hope this has been a useful presentation for you. Certainly there's a lot more information that we can provide, detailed information to your engineering team, and we'll be happy to do so. I hope this has been of interest to take you to that stage 1 where you may wish to consider evaluation. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to talking to you very, very soon. Thank you.